First, let's get to our guest.
Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man?
Shaft! Chris Arps, how are you?
Can you dig it?
Hey, I can dig it. Did you see any of this nomination hearing this morning?
Zero.
Boy, you know, I mean, you get Dianne Feinstein and you get Dick Durbin and you get exactly what you would expect out of those people on the court, and they don't have any ground to stand on here.
You remember the senator from Louisiana, Huey Long? He has a famous political saying. And it says, if you're a politician, never get caught with a live girl or a dead boy. And unless that revelation comes out about Judge Neil Gorsuch,
yeah,
or he says something controversial during these hearings, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that he will be the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. Before we go any further, Jason Church wants to give us a quick traffic update. We've got a big highway blockage going on right now.
Yeah, right now we got an alert that 70 westbound between T.R. Hughes and Route K is closed out completely due to an accident. So if you're anywhere around that area going out for lunch right now, make sure you take that into consideration.
Very good. Thank you. We'll keep you updated on that if anything changes there on Interstate 70. That's for sure.
I'd kill for that voice.
Oh, no kidding. The guy's got a set of pipes, doesn't he? He does. He absolutely does. Here's speaking of Gorsuch, and I agree with you. I mean, he's going to be confirmed because they just don't. They can't claim that his appointment will change the balance of the court, whereas Merrick Garland's would have. They can't find anything in his record where he's, supported something that they, while they may have disagreed with his decision, listen to his explanation of his record and how often he's not only voted with the majority on his court, but how rarely their stuff's been overturned. Listen.
I have decided, as I noted yesterday, over 2,700 cases. And my law clerks tell me that 97% of them have been unanimous. 99% I've been in the majority. They tell me as well that according to the Congressional Research Service, my opinions have attracted the fewest number of dissents from my colleagues of anyone I've served with that they studied over the last 10 years. Now, the Congressional Research Service speculates whether that's because I'm persuasive or I believe in collegiality. I don't see why it has to be a choice.
So, I mean, I don't know how they can argue with that if he's been, now maybe they're going to argue, well, that's a conservative circuit, and that's why you were in the majority there for so
And then
long.
if you couple that with the fact that, I haven't watched any of the hearings, but I've been reading a lot about it, and on both sides of the aisle, law professors, conservative law professors, liberal law professors have all said that he has the temperament, that he's a good judge. It was funny the other day, Schumer was trying to paint him as this pro-corporate lawyer, and then an example came out that he sided with a plaintiff who pulled his truck over to the side of the road, and he was fired, but the reason that the truck driver did that because the brakes weren't working. So he sided with this guy that he shouldn't have been fired for that. So that just blows out that he's Mr. Pro-corporate lawyer, not going for the little guy. So all of these are just is an exercise in futility, these hearings.
Last week when you were here, we talked about the homogeneous comments by Steve King, the congressman who made those comments. Yes. And, we discussed that and what he really meant. And, if he was suggesting that he wanted a white Aryan race or if he just wanted Americans to come together and be more homogeneous as a society and not have divisions based on African American or Mexican American or whatever the case may be. Regardless, the debate went on. Today, Dick Durbin brought up comments by Steve King and asked Neil Gorsuch what he thought about it. Like he's going to stand up there and say, well, Your Honor, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to that. Because he's not going to get involved in something like that.
But that precedent has been set because look at the travel ban. It's being blocked because of comments that candidate Trump made about a Muslim ban. So that's the rationale that they're using to uphold this ban.
Yeah, I haven't agreed on everything that Gorsuch has said today, only because at one point he tried to point out about how fair he was and how the judiciary is not Republican or Democrat.
Yeah,
when he said that, I'm like, wait a minute, Judge. You want to put the brakes on there because we've seen plenty of evidence of the guy that put the stop on the executive order,
Yeah.
there are pictures of him with Obama with his arm around him.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Well, he's the 10th Circuit, right?
In Hawaii, and I think
no,
ninth.
Gorsuch.
Yeah, I
Gorsuch.
think he's in the
So
10th.
he just needs to go one over to the 9th, and then he can, no, that is complete BS.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, there's no doubt about the little influence there on both politics.
Exactly.
Now, he claims and I brought this up before, but I emceed an event for some lawyers 6 or 7
I'm
months
shocked.
ago, and there was a federal judge on the panel, and the question came up of impartiality by judges and whether or not politics plays a role, and she argued vehemently that that's not the case.
Yeah.
But it's even if you don't want to call it liberal or conservative or Republican or Democrat, the bottom line is you either perceive the Constitution as a living, breathing document that you as a jurist have the ability to interpret and change, or you don't. And if you perceive it that you have as a jurist, you have the right to change it, then you're a liberal. And if you don't, then you're a conservative. It's black or white as far as I'm concerned.
And that's our political system. We have Republican and Democratic politicians. So, naturally, those people, because the president puts those people on the course, that he's going to choose someone that has a political philosophy that's similar to his. I don't see anything that's particularly bad about that myself.
Feinstein brought up today when questioning Gorsuch that this president claimed that he was going to nominate somebody that would overturn Roe versus Wade, and you're his nominee. And like that was, accusatory. So had she been a judge in a court of law, she would have said, well, what he said on the campaign trail, basically.
But I thought Donald Trump said during the campaign that if it was going to be overturned, that it should be a state's rights, or it should be the state should decide that. I've never heard him say that he outright wanted
that he wanted abortion banned. Yeah, I did.
He said he
right.
wanted it to go to the states.
That's a good point. That's a good point. She tried desperately to get him to back away from the Heller decision on the individual right to keep and bear arms. And, of course, he wouldn't go there, but she tried to get him to argue because Justice Scalia on that decision said that there could be certain firearms that might be excluded from your right to keep and bear arms, but he wasn't specific on what that was. And, of course, the Democrats want to, just like Lyda Crewson, extend that to anything that holds more than 5 bullets. And it's utterly ridiculous. I'll let you listen to that exchange. Hang on.
Justice Scalia wrote, for example, laws restricting access to guns by the mentally ill or laws forbidding gun possession in schools were consistent with the limited nature of the Second Amendment. Justice Scalia also wrote that, quote, weapons that are most useful in military service, M16 rifles and the like, may be banned, end quote, without infringing on the Second Amendment.
Buy an M16.
Do you agree with
Diane?
that statement, that under the Second Amendment, weapons that are most useful in military service, M16 rifles and the like, may be banned?
Senator, Heller makes clear the standard that we judges are supposed to apply. The question is whether it's a gun in common use for self-defense, and that may be subject to reasonable regulation. That's the test, as I understand it.
So I mean, here's the fallacy in that. They're reading into it something Scalia didn't say, number one, because Feinstein wants to believe that you and I can go out and buy an M16 just because an AR-15 looks similar, but they're not the same gun.
They should ask these Democrat politicians that if you were in a war, you were in a foxhole, would you rather have an M16 or an AR-15?
They wouldn't know. But the problem is most of them wouldn't know the difference, and yet they want to impact your
But you explain it to
rights.
them. AR-15, you're going to have short bursts of gunfire. With an M16, you can just rail
fully
off
automatic.
on it.
Yeah.
Which one would you want to have in war?
But what they fail to understand, and the point that we make as supporters of the Second Amendment, is that it wasn't put there for rabbit hunting.
Right.
It was put there to stop a tyrant from taking over your government. And if you're going to have to go to war, you can't go to war with a single shotgun against an M16.
But that's just inconceivable to them.
Well, I know it is, but it's
point.
crazy. But when the Constitution was written, what was the weapon of war? It was a musket.
Yeah.
Everybody had a musket.
Yeah.
You hunted with it. You fought with it.
And it's just like Ronald Reagan said, I'm paraphrasing, but we're one election away from tyranny or something like that. We're very close to being a despotic government, and it shows how freedom.
We were saved by the bell in November, that's for sure. Who's our guest who's coming up in the next segment?
Our guest is Sherilyn Harley LeBon, who is with Project 21. She is a former senior counsel with the Senate Judiciary Committee. She was under Senator Orrin Hatch, and she was a RNC spokesperson during the George Bush administration.
Outstanding. We'll get her on here, get her thoughts on the hearing so far for Neil Gorsuch. You're listening to The Mark Cox Show, 314-969-9797.